For more about the next state budget, I talked to eCapitol reporter Shawn Ashley. Shawn, the big deal was announced on Thursday. The governor and legislative leadership announced the budget deal. What stands out to you?
Well, it's kind of what we were expecting. They only had a limited amount of money with which to work. We've talked about that several times. They reached out and grabbed additional money, about $55 million, to increase state spending by about $267 million for the upcoming fiscal year, including a couple of supplementals, one to the State Department of Education and one to the Office of Emergency Management. What is interesting about that, I think, is that those are the only two agencies that are receiving supplemental funding. We had requests from the Department of Corrections and a number of other agencies who aren't seeing any additional funds to make it through the remainder of the current fiscal year.
There's more money for health care, human services, and mental health.
All these were issues which Governor Fallin had talked about in her State of the State speech and in her executive budget. They seem to be fairly well embraced by the Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate, and it plays right along with what she'd been asking for from the beginning.
Does the additional money exceed the amount of the growth revenue?
Yes, it does. That's what I was referring to a moment ago. They've collected some money from a variety of sources. Agencies will have money that oftentimes they're simply unable to spend, or costs come in lower than they expected during a particular fiscal year and a few months after that. And what happens is that money lapses. They no longer have the authority to spend it. And the Office of Management and Enterprise Services goes out and looks for all those funds. We joke around the press room sometimes that they're looking for the quarters under the couch cushions, and that's exactly right. In this case, it was about $45 million worth of quarters, combined with $5 million that they're grabbing from other places as well.
And there were many rolls of quarters involved in funding repairs for the Capitol.
That's exactly correct. As we know, the governor appears ready to sign House Bill 2032, which includes $60 million for the upcoming fiscal year and $60 million for the fiscal year following that. In the budget agreement that was announced, there's an additional $30 million, which is dedicated to a state building maintenance fund, but indications were Thursday that if needed, some of that money could also be used for the Capitol.
Shawn, a bill that would put the veteran centers back under the Department of Health is back on track.
That's exactly right. In fact, it passed the Senate on Thursday and is headed to the governor's desk. What's rather interesting about this is it doesn't represent any sort of agreement between the legislature and the governor, and in fact there's been a lot of discussion about the bill, even some opposition. But earlier in April, the governor, in reacting to a performance audit released by the state auditor and inspector Gary Jones, which found some operational problems at the Department of Veterans Affairs, the governor said, "Send me this bill and I will sign it." Now, it's very unusual for a governor to say in advance of a bill that's not part of an agreement that he or she would be willing to sign it. But the governor clearly pointed out that she wants to see improvements made to the Department of Veterans Affairs, which OETA has reported on a number of times, and that she's prepared to sign that legislation. The budget agreement also includes some additional money for the State Department of Health to help them monitor those facilities and conduct those inspections. So it's clear the governor's fully on board on this issue.
We're heading into the home stretch. We'll talk again next week.
Very good. I look forward to it.
Shawn Ashley from eCapitol. Thank you.
Thank you.